Hello, hello. It's Danielle from Made Possible by Pop Culture, welcoming you back to another episode of the podcast where we deep dive into pop culture's past and present with a special guest. And bonus Jonas, if you're watching on YouTube right now, there's a special guest right over my shoulder. That's my dog Archie making an appearance for the first time in a long time, and I'm really happy. Let's try not to scare him away because I want him to be in the new Air Bud movie. Not as Air Bud because he's not a golden retriever. We all know they have to be golden retrievers, but maybe as one of his little sidekicks or teammates or friends. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. This week I'm joined by a fellow podcaster, Lee, from Line Drunk Podcast. Lee was nice enough to have me on his show twice, so I'm really excited to finally get to have him on mine. Lee is also one of the few people who I think can give me a run for my money in knowledge about and a love for Friends. Although he didn't pick Friends to talk about today, so maybe we'll get into that separately. I don't know. But everybody, welcome Lee to Made Possible by Pop Culture.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for finally coming on. First of all, for everybody who is watching on YouTube, although he didn't pick Friends, he does have a Friends backdrop. So, and the thing that you did pick does have a Friends, I don't want to say crossover, but like there is a piece of it that comes up. So I was very tickled by what you picked. But I want to talk a little bit before we get into what you picked. I want to talk a little bit about your podcast because for people who listen to mine but don't know yours, just recently had on someone named Justin from Pop Culture Reflections, and he brought up a really good point about how, pop culture is such a broad topic, but like there's so many different podcasts that do the topic differently. And I would put yours in that mix. Like it's not, pop culture's not in your name, but at the same time, like you're doing interviews with people in that world. You're talking about films and TV, obviously, of that world, but you have this like really unique spin on how you do it. So I'd love if you could kind of set up for everybody, like what inspired you to do your podcast with that particular spin?
So I wish that the podcasting platform like Apple and others would allow more than two genres because I
Mm,
have film and TV, but it's also comedy in a way. I wanted to stand out and be different.
hmm
So I decided to, because I sell liquor, I wanted to have that added to the mix and have people drinking on the podcast and have a drinking game for whatever they choose to watch.
Yeah.
And just something that was fun and different and, added up to the mix. I didn't want to have the same like film thing or TV thing that everyone else does and just discussing the basics. So I dive deep into stuff. You never know what trivia questions I'm going to ask you. It could be a license plate on a vehicle that someone drove away
Yes.
off of too.
I
It
was
could be
going to
someone's
say,
address. Yeah.
I was going to say, so when I came on your podcast, you were like, pick something, pick a movie, pick a TV show. And I picked Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, the original movie, because I was like, I love this movie. I watch it at least once a year. I know everything about it. And I knew he's going to pick hard trivia questions. But I was like, but this is a movie where it's not like a lot of the more recent movies that you do where you can listen to a commentary track and pick trivia questions off the commentary track. This is a movie where you're picking out of the movie. And so I was like, oh, this is gonna be fine. And then I was stumped on a lot of different questions. And so I want to talk a little bit about the trivia. Like, how are you writing your questions? Are you just rewatching the movie and pausing it in certain places and being like, oh, that's something really unique? Or are you pulling from things you've seen people talk about online that are interesting? Like, how does your process work?
Okay, first of all, now you've given me an idea. Watching a
Uh-oh.
commentary and taking notes from that
I
because I've
thought you
never done
were.
that. I've
Okay.
never
You've
done
never
that.
done that. Okay. Well, because I know there are some episodes where you talk about like, oh, I've listened to the commentary and da 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 da, whatever it is. Like you have a fact off the top of your head that you remember. So I think I maybe just assumed that's where you were getting some of the questions from. But okay, great. So I've made his game harder. That's what I didn't mean to do. But okay, for anyone who comes on your podcast in the future, it's going to be harder.
So I have my phone and I pull up my notes and I will, at the top of my notes, just says the name of the movie or the TV show, and there's a specific episode. And then I push play on the show and I take notes at random. If I might pause it at times if it's something I need to like write down a number or license plate, But for the most part, I just start watching it. Anything that grabs my attention, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Let me add that to the question and see if they even noticed it.
Mm.
Um, like I recently did, and this is something I didn't ask about it, but recently watched a movie. Actually, the episode came out today. But in the movie, it's part of it's set in Vegas, and
Okay.
there's a scene that shows a motel called the Glass Pool Inn. That is something that no one, unless they've been to Vegas, will know. But
Okay.
I wanted to like pause the interview with him and say, "Hey, so this is something that I drove by all the time, and I recognized it, and it's gone now, but it was something unique."
Okay.
So
Yes.
like
And
stuff like that, I'll pull out. It could be something personal that I just like that, or it could be something that said, "Oh, hey, Shawshank Redemption. What are the prison numbers?" Now that's something very unique and specific, but someone may or may not know that question.
I think it also, though, speaks to how people watch movies. Because I remember when I came on your podcast and we were talking about Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, one of the things that I said was like, oh, when I was watching that movie when I was younger, I was just immersing myself in the world and I wasn't paying attention to the credits, for example. But you had at the time, I think, a couple questions about who directed it or who wrote it. And I was like, obviously, I should know that. But for whatever reason, because when I was a kid, I was like, I just want to live in this world. I wasn't thinking that way. So I do want to say for everybody, like, there are some questions out there that, like, it's a degree of difficulty depending on how you're watching a film. If you are second screen viewing, you're probably not going to do super well because you're not going to notice things like you just said, like, oh, a prison number, which they don't necessarily say out loud. You see
Right.
it somewhere, or a license plate, you see it somewhere, which is what I found really interesting. And I did feel like after I did your podcast, I was whatever I was watching it, because this was a while ago. I don't remember what the next thing I watched was, but I feel like I was watching it differently because I was like, I want to focus better because not that someone's going to ask me those types of questions again, but it really took me back to when I would, when I was a journalist and it was like the focus you have to watch something to then write about it because you are picking up on small things that matter, whether you're reviewing it or simply interviewing somebody who you want to ask, why did you make that choice? Or, you know, any sort of detail, whether it's storytelling or visual about maybe there's an Easter egg you caught that no one caught. I'm watching something right now that I can't talk about because it's not coming out for a little while, but like it's definitely one of those shows where like, oh, there's so many Easter eggs. I feel like we all need to be retrained to watch that way for that show. So I do want you to set up what you picked for your past influence. And I do want to say for everybody, it is something you've talked about on your podcast.
It is. And I was gonna say that I think society now is so focused on our phones that we forget to actually pay attention to the TV screen, whether it be a movie or a film. And recently I went to go watch Weapons. I
Mm.
was so distracted by everyone around me because they've gotten too comfortable in the movie theater.
Oh, so
They
people
like
are on their phones
they're
and
on their phones. They are bringing in hamburgers, Slurpees, whatever. They bring in their pajamas with a blanket. They're bringing in their vapes. They're talking loud. I'm like, this is not your living room. This
yeah,
isn't a movie theater, and I want to pay attention to the movie,
yeah.
not to you guys.
And
And
it's
so if they're
so
in there filming a TikTok while the movie's starting, like that's not
that's interesting. I feel like that I haven't been to a movie theater in a while. I tend to wait until things are available to watch at home, maybe partially for that reason. Like I want to be comfortable and I want to be able to pause it if I have to pee or something. But I also wonder if maybe that is like dependent on where you saw the film. Because I feel like here in LA, people don't do that. I could be wrong, but I feel like because this is such a like LA is still such a working town, there are so many people here that middle class working on films are struggling now because the industry has been so decimated. But you're going to the theater, it's still kind of an experience, and you're still kind of like respecting it as an art form. And
right.
in the way you were describing, it doesn't feel like it like they're respecting it as anything. It does feel very much like, oh, it's just killing time. Which also, by the way, if you're going to spend money to go to a theater where it's not super cheap anymore, like why wouldn't you want to pay attention to what's happening on the screen? That makes no sense to me.
Yeah. Well, and I don't go often, but on Tuesdays they have $5 movies or $6 movies or whatever. So
Oh,
I will
okay.
go that. And I wanted to see Freakier Friday. So I
But
did
I was
see
just gonna
Freakier
say that might
Friday.
also be it. Is like if someone's like, "Oh, it's only $5. Who cares?" If I'm like talking, that might be it too. Is like their mentality going in is like, I can treat this differently. I'm not I don't know what it is here anymore. It's probably like $20 like for the nice seats and the uh, you know,
Right.
what are they called? The surround, like the audio in the heads in the like headrest. I don't know what that's called, but
I don't either, but while it's comfortable having the reclining seats, I wish they go back to the regular seats because I feel like that would bring back the movie
yeah.
theater aspect of it and not your home.
Yeah, because theater, like movie theater was just one step below regular theater. Like there was a level of like you're still going out to something. You're not getting dressed up per se, but it is, it's slightly odd to hear you say people come in their pajamas. Although like I'm like, oh, I would go to the movie theater more if I was wearing pajamas because then I'd be comfortable. And yeah, the reclining, like you do tend to feel you're more at home, you're more comfortable. Sometimes you just forget where you are. I could argue that. I am one of the people that sneaks in weird food. I always was, even like back in the day when, movie concession stands were just popcorn and candy, like because they were just popcorn and candy. When I was real young, my mom and I would go to like the bodega and get like a pint of ice cream and like she'd stick it in her purse and then we would just like share the ice cream during the movie. It doesn't smell. It's not like hopefully distracting, but there were always jokes about like because it was New York, like who's gonna sneak in like egg rolls or slices of pizza or whatever, and like, you couldn't put a slice of pizza in your purse, but it mattered back then. You had to sneak it in,
Right.
whereas now I don't think you have to sneak, so to speak. I
So,
don't know.
so what I chose is
Yes,
a
let's get back on
film.
topic,
I know.
Danielle. Sorry.
What I chose is a film that I did not see in theaters, and I don't know why, because I
Okay.
love this actress so, so, so much. But I did buy it on DVD with a gift card I had, and it was one of three movies I had when I had a DVD player at the beginning. So I watched that movie countless times, and I watched the commentary countless times to where I could memorize the commentary. So yesterday, in preparing for this podcast, I did watch the commentary first, and then I
Oh.
rewatched the film by itself without the commentary.
Well, I can already say that you've prepared more than I have because I probably did have the commentary somewhere on a DVD, but didn't remember. So I did not do that. Anyway, go ahead.
So I chose Miss Congeniality.
Yay. I was very excited when you chose this because was a big influence on me as well. So there's always moments where I'm like waiting for a guest to pick something that I just have loved for so long. And this was one of those moments. And I will say that I found it really interesting that you just said you didn't see it in theaters, but you bought it on DVD. So it sounds like you bought it sight unseen, which to me feels like a really big commitment, especially back when DVDs were like quote unquote new and they were a little bit more expensive. Or maybe a lot more expensive because these days it feels like you can get them for $1 at a yard sale or like a $5 bin at Walmart or whatever. So what made you even say, I'm gonna buy this movie, not knowing maybe you knew what it was about. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what was it that made you say like I'm gonna buy this movie?
Well, I didn't know anything about it. I just love Sandra Bullock. She's talented, gorgeous, funny. Like she's great in dramas. She's great in comedies. Like I don't think there's a bad movie I've seen of hers. And it was expensive because it was at a bookstore, and the bookstores always upcharge their DVDs. But I had a gift card, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to just take this chance and buy it. And I think it might have been like 25 or $28 for the DVD, which I
Right.
mean, that was high back then. I don't want to say when, but like it was high.
Yeah,
So,
especially because there weren't well, I mean, you didn't know necessarily what would happen. Like VHS was on its way out, if not already out. DVD was new, but like who knew if you'd have to replace that with the next technology? And yeah, sure enough, now we have that's how I watched it for this podcast. I rewatched it just digitally, which is why I said, "Oh, I probably still have the DVD somewhere with the commentary on it, but the digital version didn't have a commentary option." So we've already
right.
lost a lot of things in the transfer, but that's my point is kind of like you bought it on a DVD, not knowing if you'd like it, not knowing how many times you'd watch it, not really knowing what you'd get out of it. So let's start there, I guess. What was it that like once you did see it, you already knew you loved Sandra, but what was it about the movie itself that made you want to keep watching it and made it such an influence?
Other than only having three DVDs,
Okay,
it,
yes.
it's
There
well,
was
and
PD.
yes, but the DVD players were expensive back then.
No, but I just mean
And
like there are other things you
right,
could be watching if
right,
you didn't like
yes.
this
And
movie.
I do want to say that I like having the hard copy. I
Hmm.
like a digital one as well, but I want the hard copy just in case some streaming
Yeah.
service decides to stop carrying it or whatever.
Yes.
But it's just a funny movie. It's well written,
Hmm.
well acted, like well directed. It's something that'll grab your attention. I don't think anyone doesn't like this movie. And I was surprised to see I think on IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes, it had a very low rating. And I
I
was
was
like,
going to say the
why?
Rotten Tomatoes score, I remember it being, I haven't looked at it recently, but I remember it being low both from the like fans and then also from the critics. But I do think a lot of movies of that era were treated that way because I think like fans aside for a second, I think the critics didn't take them that seriously, especially because they were quote unquote like women films. They were lighter, they were funnier. I will say for myself, there's a moment in Miss Congeniality that I think is one of the greatest shots in all of cinema. I don't care what you want to say about like The Godfather and Citizen Kane. I'm not saying those movies are not classics, but when Candice Bergen stands up in her office, she has these
Yes.
posters or there's behind her of the previous winners of the pageant, and they're all obviously wearing crowns, and she stands up in her office, and when she stands she's perfectly framed so the crown is like on her head, and that is to this day one of the greatest cinematic achievements I think I've ever seen, which is kind of silly to say because it's so simple. But I think that's kind of what I found the beauty of this movie is there's a lot of it that seems simple, but it's not when you think about it because there's like what it means is the layers to things. And certainly for that character, I mean, she couldn't let go of the pageant and and a little bit her past, but also the fact that, you know, spoiler alert for everyone who hasn't seen this movie, she's being fired, and that's ultimately why she ends up deciding to try to, stage something to take down the pageant and kind of ruin what she loved. But anyway,
Right.
there's such an iconic, I think, image of the any pageant crown. And so then this the way they used it in that way, which was like I thought a little silly but a little unexpected. I don't know, I love it so much.
And I hadn't watched this movie in like 3 years.
Yeah, I
Like,
will say for something that like I think when you love it and maybe when you watched it a lot when you were younger, and tell me, correct me if I'm wrong, about like if you did watch it over and over, um, I think sometimes then at least for me, I get to a place where I don't want to watch it for a little while because like I've seen it so much, I can quote it. This is where the Friends thing comes in. Like, you know it through a wall, you know it too well, which is something
yes.
that Monica says to Chandler because they're on vacation and he recognizes this congeniality being turned on TV through a hotel room wall. But it's true. I think when you watch something so much, you get to know it so well, there's a little bit of the magic that's lost on the rewatch. But if you step away from it for a little while and then you watch it again, your eyes are not new, but I feel like the time away lets you like appreciate it again. Maybe you recognize something you forgot, especially you, the way you watch things, looking for those crazy trivia questions.
And
I guess that's part of this too, is what with the movie like this, like when you have seen it so many times, how are you watching it?
so there was one thing I noticed in this roundabout watching it that I never noticed before, and I don't know why I noticed it this time. Because I've noticed like in the Starbucks scene, you can see the Starbucks logo in the back. And that's also mentioned in the commentary. He's like, I hate that you can see us, but she's
Oh,
like, no one's focusing on that. They're focusing on me. And he's like, well, yes. But she had red bottom shoes in one scene. And I was like, oh, I would never have noticed that. But I was like at the bottom of the screen when she's walking away and,
that's interesting. Yeah, I never would have noticed that either. The
but this was also
logo,
before people are talking about those shoes.
right. And her character is not a character that would have cared.
Right.
So I think it is really like a subtle detail that if the audience notices, it's a nice like nod to how much they're changing her. Which I always appreciate those things. I always feel like the wardrobe, the accessory choices, hair and makeup changes on a character throughout the movie, like that says so much. But I want to talk about the Starbucks thing for a minute because the logo never distracted me, but I will say that just the idea of that scene at all always felt to me like, oh, this is obvious product placement. Like there's no need for this scene to be here. and it demeans her character a little bit that she's like the girl in the FBI that has to like go get everybody's coffee order, which I didn't love. I think made a little bit of sense because she was already on the outs because she was, she relies so much on her instincts and got someone hurt at the sting that they were
Right.
doing. And I think like I could see why they would put her in that kind of position, but it also kind of bummed me out of like, oh, I don't know. I think there was maybe a different way to do that to show that she's on the outs than this stereotypical thing. But of course, if Starbucks is paying for this, here we
And
are.
I could be wrong, but I feel like that was more of her still trying to prove herself. I feel like that's why in the scene in the restaurant, she's trying to prove herself. So when that happens, she's still trying to be like move up in the ranks. Um, and I did find out that again, I hadn't watched the commentary in forever,
Yeah.
but the Starbucks employees are actually Starbucks employees.
Oh, that kind of makes sense. Because, yeah, back in the day, it was like whoever's around, we'll get you to sign something. We'll like write you a little extra
Right.
money. Yeah, that makes I feel like there's another scene. Isn't there another scene like that in this movie? I don't know if it's in the pageant with where there's like a lot of extras in the audience that are just like people who work there. Or I thought there, I might be misremembering, but I feel like I read something a long time ago where they were like, yeah, we happen to just use the people who worked there.
I know they used a lot of the crew for
Mm.
different scenes. I was also going to say that the Starbucks orders that she orders are her family's orders.
Oh, that's cute.
So something different. But like I know I think the makeup artist or stylist was in one of the scenes. The seamstress was one of the judges. So you kind like they took advantage of that, which
Sure.
works
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So I mean, you said obviously going into this movie, you were already a fan of Sandra Bullock. How did you feel about the ensemble around her? Were there characters that stood out to you on your first watch that became reasons for continued watches?
I mean, it's there's so many amazing actors in this film, so it's hard to sit there and say that it's one specific one's going to grab your attention. I mean, you've got my mind is gone blank, but Benjamin Bratt, you've
Mhm.
got Candice Bergen, you've got William Shatner, you've got oh my gosh, what's his name
Well,
from
there's a lot of Michael.
Ghostbusters?
Oh, Ernie Hudson.
Ernie Hudson. I want to say Ernie Banks, and I was like, that's not correct.
Well, there's also Michael Caine, so I wasn't sure which way you were going.
Michael Caine, you've got him as well. So like, it's so many people that
Hmm.
they all have really good one-liners at some point in the film. Like and Candice Bergen. So the scene where Sandra Bullock spits the gum out in her hand, that was Candice's idea.
I remember hearing that, and I remember just being like, I find that gross. I don't know why you'd be willing to do that.
Um, the Gracie is named after the director and the writer's daughter.
Hmm.
Like I'm trying to think what else there was. Like it's just little tidbits that just grab like it's the song they sing is written by the director's son. Like the lyric the music is written by him. The lyrics were by the director, but just so much grabs your attention. Frank, the guy that plays
Those
Frank
are all
Tobin,
facts you learned from the commentary because
they are.
okay, because I was gonna say there's no way like that you could have known, whose idea it was to spit the gum without. So the fact that like you go beyond just watching the movie when you love the movie, is that something that you do all the time, or is that something you did, for example, like because you were going to do this movie on your podcast?
Well, I had known all that before because I watched the commentary so many times. But if it's a movie that I love like this, I want to watch the commentary or I want to look up more information about it. And I'll be watching a movie and I'll go on my phone to IMDb and look at all like the tidbits while I'm watching the film, or I'll try to connect this actress to this actor from another film or whatever. Um, so yeah, I don't, it's just, there's certain films that I love so much that I want to know more about.
Right. I mean, and it does add like the extra layers to it of like I think you can appreciate it more when you know some of what went into it and again like who made certain decisions and why. And I will say that I'm very similar in the if I recognize somebody and I'm like, oh, where do I know you from? I do that constantly. Where like a lot of times I'll just sit there and like calculate it in my head, which means I'm missing scenes because I'm not paying attention. So now it is a lot easier just to be like, I'm going to look it up on IMDb so it'll save me some time and I won't lose focus on the movie. But I feel like there were some good ones in this movie for that too, because even Miss Rhode Island, Cheryl, she was played by Heather Burns, and this movie came out early enough that I didn't really know Heather.
Hmm.
She had done other things. Let me back up. I don't want to make it sound like
Right.
this was her first movie. She had done other movies, but I didn't really like recognize her per se. But then upon rewatches, I'd be like, "Oh, I've now seen you in whatever." Or when I've gone to those other projects that came after, I'd always be like, "Oh, that's Cheryl from Miss Congeniality," which I'm sure is not something an actor wants to hear. But, it's years later, she would be in like I don't know. I'm trying to think of something I remember her from. I remember she did, this is going to sound crazy, but I remember she did an episode of Elementary, the um,
Oh,
Johnny,
okay. Yeah.
what's his last name? I'm blanking, but the CBS
Right.
Lucy Liu procedural.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, what was it, like 2 decades later, a decade and a half later? But I was like, oh my God, it's Cheryl from Miss Congeniality. And I knew her name was Heather, but my point is, like, they just stick with you so much. The one thing that I will ask you about in terms of those people, were there any characters or actors that were kind of lesser known in this movie that you either wanted to then kind of follow to the next thing or like tried, but like maybe they didn't do as many things as you were interested in watching?
I don't know about that. I did recognize um, California. She was
California. Okay.
she played. I know it's the show got canceled, but Papa's House that was out on CBS.
Oh, like the new one, the
Yes.
with Damon Wayans. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So she played his ex-wife in like 2 or 3 episodes. So I was like, oh, I recognized her, but I had to look online to like realize that was her from this movie.
Honestly, that's a really great example because that literally has been now two and a half decades later, and like
Yes.
I will say I watched Papa's House and didn't make that connection, and I'm not sure why. I mean, I've seen her in other things in between, but unless I had seen her name in the credits, I don't think I would have recognized her.
I think it was the way she talked, and then the whole scene of are you sleeping with the judge?" question that she asked in Miss Congeniality. I think the way that those two connected with me for some reason. And so that's why I was like, is this like why do I know her?
Yeah, that's a great scene. It's a great line.
I don't think there's really anybody else that like stood out. Um,
That's fair. I always like to
yeah,
ask.
I
You
mean
never
Heather
know who you're
Burns
gonna.
was right. I know Heather Burns was also in 2 weeks' notice,
Mhm.
but that was like very quickly after Miss Congeniality, so it wasn't like a big jump in that.
No, but it is a good example of like if you it's also another Sandra Bullock movie. So like if you're already fans of these people and now you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna go see this movie because they're both
Mhm.
in it," then you're just intentionally, I guess, kind of following them along their careers. Obviously she was also a Miss Congeniality too, which of course we're not necessarily talking about today, but like I still kind of wish they had done a trilogy. Like I every time you do Miss Congeniality, this and Legally Blonde too, I'm like, if you do two, just wrap it up with a third one. Just do a trilogy. Just do one more. But we never got it. So
You know what? Maybe we'll get one in the future.
I
I
don't think
say
it
that
would work
now.
now.
I,
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the story would be this many years later. I mean, she could certainly still be working in the FBI and
right,
not saying there's like nothing to do, but I mean, I also think that so many of the players would I think have to be different. Like the Miss
right.
Congeniality 2 coming so closely on the heels, I think it was only like 4 or 5 years maybe after the first one. Um, in terms of coming out. I think they were shot closer together, but I think it was like about 4 or 5 years between coming out. Um, it made sense that like Stan was still in the orbit, right? Like Cheryl was still in the orbit. And I guess maybe what you could do is like, oh, if they're trying to get to Gracie, they try to pull her back by going to somebody that maybe she's lost touch with. Maybe Cheryl's not still in her orbit, but she's still someone she cares enough about that like if you put her in danger yet again, she'll come save her. I don't know. I don't know if that
I
worked.
mean, I feel like more of maybe her character is running the FBI now or up there, and maybe something's going on, maybe like a TikTok star or something. And so her daughter steps in to kind of help out.
Oh,
and
I
be that
see.
person. So maybe something different. I mean, they're making
Yeah, it
white
would
chicks
have, I
too.
think it would
Like
have to
it's
be.
gonna be, yeah, something completely different, but I
Yeah,
think it could still work.
yeah, maybe. I don't know. I do want to turn to your present day pick because this is another film that I also loved, but I would say that I don't know that I would call it as big of an influence on me as maybe it is on you. So I want you to set up so what it is and like why it's still an influence today, even though it came out a few years ago.
Okay, and back up 1 second. I did want to
Sure.
point out that Miss Ohio in Miss Congeniality is actually Miss Texas.
Oh, like she was
Like
really
she was really Miss Texas, and so they
in
had her
white
in the
and then
film.
that's
Yeah,
yeah, those are fun. I mean, I don't know why they didn't just I actually do know why they didn't make her Miss Texas, but like it's maybe it's a funnier nod if like, oh, we're gonna shove
yeah,
you over here. Yeah.
yeah. And like the guy that played Frank Tobin is now a counselor, I believe, and he doesn't drink. I
Really?
reached out to him to come on the podcast, and he was like, "I don't drink," and I was like, "Okay, that's fair." And like, yeah.
But I don't
So
drink and I came on your podcast.
some people, it depends on who it is. I think
No,
he actually
it's
works with.
interesting though that he's a counselor now. There's a whole, I mean, this was just someone just wrote an article about this, but there are a lot of, I will call them actors from my childhood that have now gone into that therapy route. And I'm fascinated by it because I was such a fan of them and of pop culture in general that like I would never be able to walk into their office and like I know that they've been trained. I know they're professionals, but I could never walk in their office and take them seriously. And I'm very glad that there are people out there in the world that can get past that, or maybe don't even know what their past life was, because there's a guy from California Dreams who I loved, who is now a therapist.
Who's that?
Oh my God, I'm gonna blank on his name, and I'm gonna feel so bad because I don't want to say his character name and call him by the wrong name. Give me 1 second, I'm gonna remember. His character was Antoine, so his real name is William. Sometimes I flip-flop him. I didn't want to do that. So William Jones, this was a few years ago now. They were doing like a California Dreams reunion concert at the pop-up for Saved by the Max here in Los Angeles. And I went and I did interviews with some of them after the concert for an article that I wrote for Variety. And I don't know how it came up, but he mentioned that he was a therapist. And I was like, how's that? And because in the back of my head, I was like, do people not walk in and like want you to sing to them? I find that weird. But also the woman who played Fran on Mad About You, and that's why she didn't do the reboot or I'm sorry, the revival. So anyway, like there's a whole contingent of Hollywood that is, and it makes sense in a way because it's a pretty messed up place. And a lot of,
Yeah,
working on sets, you need a therapist. And I think they probably realized that. And when they all realized, like, we don't want to be actors anymore, or we can't be actors anymore because work is drying up, like, that's a pretty good route to go because I think they understand
yeah, can
like
relate
what
to each
people
other.
need. Yeah, and just like having to tap into characters in that way and understand what fictional characters, what drives them and what they need, like that is psychology in itself. So it makes sense, and yet I still find it strange in some ways. Anyway,
Sorry, that was like a
again, I took us
sidetrack.
down
I
a
know
rabbit hole. So
it was
your
my fault.
present day pop culture pick influence.
Okay, I would like to preface this by saying that I, at the time, had the movie pass card. So you paid a monthly fee and you could go to the movie theater and see as many movies as you want to. I
Okay.
think you got to see one a day or something. I don't know. Anyway, so I'd like to preface that with that. I did see this movie 7 times in theaters. I think only 3 of them were by myself. I think the rest of them went with other people.
I mean, that's good, but that's still a lot. That's a
It is a
lot.
lot, but I loved it. So the other movie I chose was Game Night.
And so now this came out about 7 years ago in 2018. So you were seeing it in theaters 7 years ago, but you're picking it today as still an influence. So tell me what it is about it that still I mean, listen, I'm going to say still holds up, and that's going to sound crazy because it's not 30 years later. But what
Right.
is it that still is such an influence, even though you didn't necessarily see it during formative years where it might imprint on you the way that Miss Congeniality did?
Well, and I think I really was trying to think of something more recent, but I love this movie so much, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that my favorite movie is Clue.
Okay.
And I didn't want to talk about that just because I don't know how I want to talk about that one yet. But there's so many influences from Clue into this movie. It's a different take on it, I guess. And it was amazing actors that had uh, so many one lines that I will still quote to this day as well. Like the "Oh no, he died." I know that's so random, but sometimes it'll just pop in my head, even if no one
You
around me
know,
has died. But
it's
like,
not random for the movie. I think if you're just randomly in your own life, maybe, because what are the you're not going to randomly, you're not going to actually see someone dying all the time where it's going to be a literal exclamation.
right. But in my head, I'm just like, "Oh no, he died." Like I think about that so much, and I shouldn't, but I do. It just, and there's like, more famous people in this movie because it's
Yes.
2018.
Yes. And I
So many
love
cameos.
I was just gonna say that's so for me, like, so just so for people who out there who don't know this movie, the main cast very star-studded. I mean, Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams played the main couple who are throwing game night for their friends, and it goes awry because his brother, who's Kyle Chandler, gets kidnapped. And so the already that group is a lot of famous people: Lamorne Morris, Sharon Horgan, Kylie Bunbury. Their neighbor is Jesse Plemons. They don't really like him, but he pops up a lot. But then to me, it is the cameos. It is the Jeffrey Wright who plays like the fake FBI agent in the beginning who comes in because they set up the game night was set up as like there's going to be a fake kidnapping murder mystery for you to solve, but then that turns into a real thing, and Jeffrey is the fake FBI guy, like the actor playing the FBI guy. And then like Chelsea Peretti was another one. But I will say my favorite, I don't know if you want to say your favorite first, because this is really more about you.
Um, I don't know about I'm trying to think of like a favorite cameo
Or
or
in
just like
anyone,
I
anyone.
think my favorite. Well, I do want to say Jeffrey Wright. I saw him and I said, "Hey, I saw Game Night 7 times in theaters," and I think he was like, "Okay, cool," and just walked off. Like I was no big deal to him. Like I don't know. I tried.
Well, he's not even, I don't think he's even credited in that. Like, I think he had one of those uncredited cameo roles. I mean, he wasn't the Jeffrey Wright that he is today, 7 years ago. You
Right.
know what I mean? So I don't know if that was because he was kind of unknown and people thought that it wouldn't matter, or if it was the opposite of like, oh, it would be more fun if this is like an Easter egg that I don't really know. I just know that his name never really appears online when you see the cast list, which I think is bonkers. Um, but I will say Michael C. Hall is my favorite one because he's Michael C. Hall, he's
Yes.
Dexter. And I was just, and like the character that he plays, he's not who I pictured for that character at all. But he does such a good job in it that it didn't matter in the end because he does play. Again, spoiler alert, guys. I mean, this movie's 7 years old. I don't know why I'm saying spoiler alert, but he basically plays the big bad, the one who is actually kidnapping and after the brother character played by Kyle Chandler because of the thing that he wants that Kyle is supposed to procure for him that is also a very bad thing that he shouldn't have. And like he's so good at playing bad because of Dexter that like it's fine. But I kept picturing like a big, beefy guy with like an accent from overseas. And then Michael shows up, and I'm like, you know what? I'm okay with this. This is fun. This really works.
Uh, well, he is a Bulgarian, but I was gonna say my
Bulgarian.
favorite character,
Couldn't remember.
and I don't want to mispronounce his name, but Billy, is it Magnuson?
Oh, yes. I
His
forgot he was in this.
character is so funny, and he's blown up a lot,
Yes. Yeah.
along with Sharon Horgan that played his girlfriend, or I say girl, the date in the
Well, yeah,
movie,
the
the
coworker
date.
slash date that they argue over. Yeah.
But recently, and this is side note, I watched a short film. I say recently, it might have been like 6 months to a year ago, but Billy produced it, and I had no
Hmm.
idea.
Yeah,
So that
he's
was
been
kind of
doing a
like
lot.
he has, and I was talking to the director and the writer of the film, and she was like, "Oh, I'm going to go see this in New York," and I was like, "Oh, okay." And she's like, "I got." She explained that he produced the film, and that he was the one she was going to go see, and he got our tickets to see a show, and I was like, I had no idea,
Hmm.
but
Did
he
you
is
tell her you
so.
saw Game Night 7 times?
I did, and I sent her. I have a okay. So I knew one of the employees of the movie theater, and she gave me like the giant, like floor to ceiling
Hmm.
poster. So it's hanging in my guest room as like a not really a backdrop, but
I honestly don't remember what it looked like, but I feel like It's obviously a statement piece now in your house, but I almost feel like it should be somewhere more visible in your house so that when people come in, they see it. And then it's a conversation starter. It's like, do you love this movie? I love this movie. You should watch this movie. If it's hidden away in your guest room, not that many people might see it.
Maybe when I move, but for now, it like fit into the guest room because I used to host as a, I won't say because I got banned on that website for whatever reason. They won't tell me. Anyway, I know that's a
What?
whole,
You got banned on what website?
on a certain short-term rental property website. And
Oh,
it was because they said, did you talk to people off the app? And I was like, well, yeah. I mean, I had people stay for like a month at my house, so it was easier to text them and they just kicked me off.
oh.
But so I had the movie room and I have movie quotes throughout the movie. And so that was like the big statement piece in the center of the room.
Nice. I was actually going to ask you if I thought you were starting to tell a story about hosting game nights. So that was where I was gonna go. How much, if any, did this movie inspire you to host a game night?
So I don't host them, but I do like going to them. I don't want to host them. I will bring the liquor, I'll bring whatever, but I don't want to host them. My house is not big enough for a game night anyway.
Oh, because it's interesting because I feel like in a way your podcast is a version of hosting a game night because you're doing trivia. You're doing all
Yeah.
the work. You're writing all the questions. You're like watching the movie over and watching the commentary and doing all these things to put it together to produce this game night, essentially. And then, yes, of course, on the podcast, like who your guests come on, maybe if they're virtual, they're drinking in their own house or whatever. But that's how my brain works. It went to the place of like, well, you're naturally, it felt like good at putting that stuff together. Doesn't necessarily matter to me, I think, what the space looks like. I guess, I don't know. It depends, I guess, on how many people you would want at your game night.
I also don't have a table for
Mm.
a game night, but I hadn't thought about my podcast being like a game night. So
I
that's
mean,
interesting way to put it. I like that
it's
aspect though.
not everyone's going to do trivia at a game night. So maybe that is sounding simplistic because, certainly in this movie, they're playing things like charades. I'm not playing charades at game nights. I will say that. I used to host game nights all the time mostly when I was younger and I lived in a different place as well. Although I do have a giant table, I just like never do it anymore. But we were playing more board games. Like we play like Cards Against Humanity. My favorite was, oh my God, I'm gonna mess up the name. It's not, is it called Pandemic? Hold on. It
Yeah,
Okay, I always feel like it's not called pandemic because we just lived through a pandemic, but I was like, no, the game is actually okay, great. That was my favorite game because this was I want to say this very clearly. This was pre-real pandemic. We would play this board game and I would actively be like, how can we spread the disease? How can we not do what we're supposed to do in the game? Like, I would be actively working against the point. But I loved it. I thought it was so fun. I also thought because there's strategy involved, but you also actively have to work as a team in a lot of points and places in the game, and it can't be like Monopoly where it's every man for yourself and very capitalistic. But those were, I think, the two that we did the most. Although we did play celebrity sometimes, where I would argue that's similar to charades in a sense of like some people would get real physical with acting it out. I don't know. Were there any, let me rephrase the question to you. Were there any games within the movie before they get to the crazy, like, we have to hunt this guy down part that you felt like you'd excel at?
I think I would have done well at the celebrity game they were playing. Um, if they did it correctly, not the way Jason Bateman did it, because
Well, but that's the thing. The way that you win sometimes is like, giving the
true.
right clue to the right teammate. Like if you go too broad, we're like, oh, this clue about Steven Spielberg, everybody should know, sometimes makes people's brains go crazy. But if you like, I know how this person thinks and I know they'll get it off of whatever, that sometimes can be a winning strategy. I did a press day on the set of Hollywood Game Night once, or maybe twice, but once. And we were like two small teams of just press members. And my friend Marissa was on my team. And like we're very close friends. We know each other very well. And so there was a game, I don't remember the name of it, but it was kind of like Celebrity where it was like you get a clue and you'd say, I can do this in 2 words. And then the other team can say, well, I can do this in 1 word. Okay, prove it. And that's basically what happened. And she got 1 word, and her 1 word was couch.
Friends.
Yes, but it also could have been Simpsons because she's a big fan of both. And so in my head, I'm like, fuck, which one is it? And there are other people on the team, but she's staring daggers at me. And because she was staring daggers at me, I was like, it's Friends. If it was Simpsons, she'd be looking at someone else. And so exactly, but see what you mean? Like you can get it from the
You
right.
can, yeah.
But I mean, that's also, it depends on, I think, very specifically what the clues are, because if you don't know some of the clues, there's always people throw in weird ones. There's Butcher's Golly, I think, in this movie. And I was like, I don't know what I would say for Butcher's Golly. That's hard. It probably shouldn't be, but it is.
I mean, no, I get it. And did you notice one of the cameos that really wasn't a cameo at the time, but now you could consider it one?
I'm probably not, because I'm the only other guy I'm remembering was the guy who played not Denzel Washington, but he didn't seem famous to me.
No, but Michael, is it Cyril Creighton? Cyril Creighton, who's in Only Murders in the Building.
Oh, yes. I forgot
So
he was in
like
this movie in the beginning.
they like pick on him the whole time.
Yes,
Yeah.
because he's like in their original game night group and then he's not
That
anymore.
mhm.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I forgot him. I do love him. Yes. That's a good one. See, you know how to do this. You should be writing trivia questions for these movies.
Well, and then the bartender is John Francis Daly's dad.
Oh, that I don't think I ever would have known. I mean, obviously, like I knew that John directed the movie, but I was like, I just don't think I would have known who his dad was. I
Yeah, I mean that was from the commentary.
don't. Okay.
Oh
See?
no, 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 no. Sorry, not the commentary. That was from me looking on IMDb because I have that obsession of looking on IMDb.
Right. That's fair. I mean, honestly, that maybe is the real influence here. IMDb.
Yes.
There is a lot of layers to the game, the
Yes.
kidnapping, because it is at first it's like, oh, I hired someone, it's going to be the game, but then that goes wrong and it's a real kidnapping. And then there's layers of like, well, we tracked him to this part. Are these people the real people or not? But then there's when they think they've solved it, there's still another layer because Jesse Plemons' character has come in and set some parts of it up because he just wants to be invited back. And then, of course, but there's still a guy after them. When you're watching this movie for the first time, are these things that you're picking up on? Like, are you picking up on like, oh, there's something shifty going on here. There's more to it.
I would say no. I don't think I picked up on it because again, there are way too many layers to this film. Because it is supposed to be like a murder mystery game night, but then someone else shows up and you don't know what bullets are real, what bullets are fake.
That's a good point.
Um, at some point there is a real bullet, other points there's not, and they point out, hey, this was fake. Here's a blood capsule. And then the next time there is a real bullet.
That's a good point. And the reason I ask is because I think having the like focus that you have and like the attention to detail of you're looking for other information, I thought maybe you were like dissecting the movie because I went into the movie knowing, okay, there's going to be a real kidnapping. Like you're already kind of one step ahead of the characters in to a certain degree because at a certain point they think it's all still part of the game. And like Rachel McAdams is dancing around with the gun and she takes a picture with the gun in her mouth because she doesn't know it's not a fake gun and all sorts of crazy stuff. So you're already ahead of them there. And so I kind of went into the movie saying, all right, well, there has to be another twist at the end. But I didn't see the twist with Jesse Plemons' character coming only because he seemed so inept.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I say that as a compliment, I think, to Jesse, just of like he did such a good job of making this guy so like weird and creepy and just like not bumbling, but like the fact that he never took off that uniform made me feel like the character was like performative, that like maybe he wasn't so good at his job, but like he liked wearing the uniform because it made him feel special. And then when he shows up and it's just him alone in a squad car, I'm like, something's off. And I didn't necessarily put it together that he was going to have orchestrated anything. but I definitely was like, I had my eye on him as like maybe a bad guy. I'll be honest. I was like, maybe he's in on this kidnapping the other way.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you stay for the credits?
I did, but that was so long ago that I don't know if I'm going to remember what you're about to say.
Well, and that's okay, but for those that haven't watched it, stay for the credits because you get to see how Jesse Plemons' character planned the whole thing. Like he
Oh,
points out
that's
every little
true.
thing.
Yeah.
Like he's like, Frito-Lay, three for the price of one. That won't make any money. He's like, there's no coupon here for, and he has coupons. And so it's these little special details that you
Mhm.
wouldn't think about, but they plan it to show everyone while they're showing the credits.
Yeah, and I will say I that was a great example of like a line that in the movie I really enjoyed because I was just like it almost felt like an ad lib. It almost felt like why are we going so far? Is Frito-Lay again like the Starbucks thing? Is Frito-Lay a sponsor? You have to get their name in there. But I enjoyed it because it is the kind of thing that like a character like him should clock. Like, oh, they have three bags of chips and it's just gonna be the two of them for dinner. That's kind of weird. And to have Jason come back and Jason's always like it's always scripted. He's not an improv comic, but it always feels off the cuff the way he delivers it with like, oh, it was a special, of course, like he's so natural at the delivery that I was like, this is fun. Those are the moments that I think, as you were saying earlier, that like the things that you stick in your mind to quote, those are the things that stick in my mind from a movie like this because it just makes it feel a little bit more natural even when the situations are getting so out of hand.
And I did forget there is an extra scene after the credits.
Oh, that I don't know if I've seen.
Okay, so you should go watch it.
Okay.
So
It's
that
it's it's
scene,
still there even in like the digital version?
it should be. It
Okay,
should
great.
be.
You just never
Um,
know.
You don't, but it's the guy that plays Denzel. I want to say Denzel now, but Denzel Washington because his real name is Denzel. But Denzel Washington fake, and then uh, Gary's ex-wife, and they meet at the gas
That's
station.
funny. That's funny. Because, yeah, I was like, poor Gary's ex-wife. I mean, if there was no deleted scene, they hired this actor just to take a few photos and that was it. Like, that's kind of sad. Could have been in a bigger part, but I appreciate that it obviously was. They just stuck it at the end.
Eh, Well, and I would like to ask you about this, the whole dog scene, just because I mean we both have dogs, but you have like a little cute little white dog.
Well, first of all, I mean, I think you're talking about the scene where Jason Bateman's bleeding all over the dog.
Yes,
Yes. So I loved going back to when we first meet Gary and he's walking out to check the mail, but he's like very clearly waiting for his neighbors and he's holding the dog and he's telling them like, oh, I like to check the mail at the end of the day because if you check it too early, maybe they didn't come yet or whatever. Plus it gives him time to go to the bathroom. And I'm like, but you're holding him. Like you're not
right.
giving him time to go to the bathroom. So like again, I made me think Gary was a little off. But the scene where he's bleeding all over the dog. I can't deal with blood at all, like fake blood. I'm for some reason I'm usually okay in like a horror movie because everything is so over the top. But
Right.
that whole scene, the minute you see the sleeve, Jason Bateman's sleeve is filling with blood and there's drips. And it's like at first it's just dripping on the carpet. I was like gagging the whole time. And then it covers the dog and he's like trying to clean the dog and he's making it worse. I couldn't even think about anything other than like please don't vomit. So, I mean, the dog is very cute and I appreciate that like they had a dog in this movie and I think they used it in a funny way, but I was like I couldn't even appreciate the dog because I was like just don't vomit. It's fake blood and yet I just can't look at it.
I mean, it did look like a crime scene afterwards.
Oh, well, yeah, the spray on
The
the
spray.
wall. Yes, exactly. I will say to you, and I don't know if you've seen this movie, the first time you said, hey, I want to talk about game night, for some reason in my head, I heard Date Night, the Tina Fey, Steve Carell movie. Did you ever see that movie?
Yes, I also love
Okay.
that movie. And I think I have it signed by somebody that was at the festival one year. I just trying to
Fancy.
remember who it was.
The ATX TV Festival?
Yeah, I think somebody from the movie was there.
I'm trying to think of who was in that movie that could have been there, and I
But
don't.
like not a big name. And I
Oh, it was an actor, not like a writer. Because that's the thing.
mm,
It's like I assumed it would be an actor because most of the like film writers and directors don't always cross over the same way actors do. But I literally the people that I really remember from that movie are like obviously Steve, Tina, Mark Wahlberg. Franco, Mila Kunis. Is Leighton Meester the babysitter? No.
And maybe I'm
I think
just
I made that up.
misremembering that, but I'm like, I
Or
did watch the movie so
Taraji.
much.
Was Taraji? No, Taraji was never at the ATX festival, I don't think. I don't know.
See, I don't know either.
Honestly, Jimmy Simpson. I wonder if Jimmy Simpson ever Common. Actually, now that I'm saying it, I'm like, I remember the whole cast. I don't know. This is a good
I
movie.
don't know, but it's a great movie as well. I do love that movie, and I
The
still
only
quote that one
reason
as
I
well.
brought it up is because I did go and I rewatched Date Night and Game Night to be like, why did I confuse those two in my head? They are such different movies, and I cannot give you an answer other than
You know,
night
I mean, they
in
are
the
different,
title.
but they have like the same kind of vibe to them. I mean, people are on the run and they're trying
Yeah,
to solve something. It like,
yeah, I guess. I mean,
I,
like Date Night to me felt like it should have been over pretty fast because like really all they, listen, once you're in the police station and you're talking to Taraji about like, oh, we used somebody else's reservation and now we have these goons after us, and you see that the goons are actually cops, and like, yes, I get it, you don't necessarily know who you can trust. But I don't think at that point they knew who they were. They could have just like gone home and like washed their hands of everything. Obviously, then you have no movie. But for whatever reason, I was like, I don't know what it is. I was confusing the two. And then I started to play this game of like, what would game night have been like with Tina Fey in that movie? I don't know who she would have played, but for some reason I was playing that game in my head.
I don't know, but it both are great movies.
Yes. Okay, so between Miss Congeniality and Game Night, because you mentioned this a couple of times, like you like to quote the movies, and you mentioned, for Game Night, one of the quotes, "Oh no, he died," when Rachel McAdams accidentally kills someone. What other quotes do you find yourself saying often from either or both movies? And have they changed over the years? Like, is there something that you feel like you use now more as an adult?
That's a good question. I'm trying. I know I took some notes and I did write down quotes, I think, from it's just been so long. Oh, one I love. This woman's ass is in the way. And then it's followed up by this broad's got two asses.
Okay, so we should say that's from His Congeniality. That I remember. But
Um,
how often, like, when does that come up?
I don't know, but
Actually, no,
they're
I could see that coming
I
up.
mean, it's yeah, it's just funny. Oh, I forgot the Alamo. That's such like a minimal line in Miss Congeniality, but it's so funny and people I think look over it.
Well, I
But
think
so
also,
anytime someone brings up the Alamo, I'm always like, I forgot the Alamo. And I don't say it out loud. It'll be very quiet to myself or just in my head, but I always think it.
oh, I was going to ask if you, because if you say it out loud, I do wonder how many people would get the reference versus just think you're making a funny joke because the line is usually like, remember the Alamo. You know what I mean? Like, would people attribute that to you being funny, or would they get that it's from a funny movie?
Here's the
Especially because
thing
you're in
with
Texas, and so it's a different vibe.
here's the thing with me. I feel like most quotes I keep to myself because no one's gonna get them. One quote that I always think about, and this has nothing to do with either one of the movies, but in the TV show Family Matters,
Mhm.
there's a whole episode where um, Carl is going on a stakeout with his partner, but it's a female.
Okay.
And I know I'm getting
I'm
to
not going to remember this at all, so
that's okay.
I'm
And no one
excited.
does. This is why I keep things to myself. But then Harriet gets the thought because of Rachel and her mother-in-law that Carl's cheating on her. So
Hmm.
they show up to the hotel or the motel where this stakeout's happen or not stakeout, they're gonna do a whole sting operation is happening. And he's dressed up, the partner's dressed up, has cleavage showing, and they're trading diamonds for money. And so the line, like Carl looks at the diamond and the partner looks at the diamond and Carl looks at his partner and down because the microphone's down her breast,
Hmm.
he says, they look real to me.
Oh, jeez.
And then she looks down her own chest and is like, they look real to me too. So I think about that line so often, but no one would get it. So I
You
think
know,
most of the lines that I quote to myself, no one's gonna understand them, so I just keep them to myself.
I mean,
And maybe I shouldn't.
that's what I think is maybe the question, because I think if you say the line and someone gets it, you have a friend for life. Like that's almost a good litmus test. Not in every scenario, but like depending on where you are. If you're at like a trivia night, if you're at the ATX TV festival, like those are great places to say it out loud and see who gets it, because then all of a sudden that's an instant connection. I don't think I would have remembered that. I watched Family Matters, but I didn't watch it over and over to the point where I could quote it the way that I can with some of these other movies and some of these other
Right.
shows. So I mean, I don't know that I would get it. I would think it's funny, but like not for the same reason. But that's what I think is so interesting about a lot of these pieces of pop culture. I just had on a comedian who was talking a lot about the way that pop culture can connect you, like across cultures, across ages, races, all of those things. And this is like the epitome of that to me is like, yes, say this quote. If it's too obscure for that person, all right, that's fine. But if it's not, that's a really great connection to make. And that's also, I think, why, like, just going back to your podcast, like, that's, I think, the same thing with those trivia questions. You know, some of them are very obscure and hard, but that's how you know you have a diehard fan of this thing in front of you. Or if not, if they can't get the answer, like, we're all learning about it together and, like, we love it. And that's why we're doing this. I think that's totally valid. I think you should definitely start saying some of these out loud.
Like, don't cry for me, Alabama.
Yes, exactly. Because again, that to me feels a little bit more obvious, like you're quoting it. So hopefully somebody would maybe not remember where it's from, but know, oh, that's a quote. I've heard that before, as opposed to like, I forgot the Alamo feels like you're just making a joke. Like, honestly, that feels like a good joke to make. And if you get credited for it, that's okay. But yes, Don't Cry for Me, Alabama. And then I loved when he was like, what, why don't you? I don't think they asked him why he doesn't have a gun, but he was just like, he volunteered, like, I don't have a gun. My family are Quakers or whatever. I thought that was fun. William Shatner as Stan in Miss Congeniality, I think is such an underrated performance because the end of the movie with the climax of the movie with basically the crowning the winner. Sandra Bullock has figured out what's going on. She's trying to tell the winner, "Don't take the crown. The explosive device is in the crown." Benjamin Bratt is fighting the security guard who doesn't know he's an FBI agent. Candace Bergen is like going to explode the crown, and William Shatner is just standing there singing his little heart out because it's the end of the pageant. He's just doing his job, and he doesn't. He kind of turns around after the explosion, and he's like a little shell shocked, but he keeps singing. It's such a good performance.
I Okay, well, one quote I do think about a lot is Michael Caine when she's eating the steak, and he's like, "I'm sorry, I was distracted by the half-masticated cow roaming in her wide open trap or whatever."
Mm-hmm.
And then
The
there's
SAT word.
thinking about the line about the Quakers, my ancestral Quakers. So I did a homework assignment, a mashup of two movie quotes, and I chose. I know I can send you the video clip if you would
I
like it,
first of all would
but
love to understand what is this assignment that wants you to mash up movie? What class is this? This is amazing.
I don't remember the class, but it was a graphic design class, and we had to
Oh,
do like a whole. And I made like a
like a visual.
crossword, yeah, a visual, and I made a crossword puzzle, but people thought it was too confusing because I didn't put them in order, and I was like, well, I didn't want to put. That's the whole point of a crossword is they're not whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, the quote was, "So if you're from Africa, why are you white?"
Oh no.
Responded with, "My ancestors were Quakers," and then responding that with, "Oh my God, Karen, you can't ask me why they're white."
That's funny. That's good. Yeah.
And then two other lines from William Shatner that made me laugh, and I don't, you can cut this if you would like to. It's not offensive, but you never know. One is when she falls, when she gets announces in the top five and she falls and her hair's all up, and he
Hmm.
goes, as soon as she falls, he goes, "Oh shit." Like
Yeah.
it is
That's not
such a
offensive.
minimal, oh, that's not the one. It is
Oh,
so like it's so quiet.
yeah,
It's not
yeah.
something that a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people don't catch it. The other one is when Miss New York she's not in the top five and then she's been
Hmm.
kicked off
Hmm.
and she's like, "This is for all my lesbians out there, blah, blah, blah." And then he goes, "We'll be back with our final five lesbians,"
Yes,
and then
yes.
tries to correct himself. And it's so funny. And then following that up with the behind the scenes. And the guy's like, "Can we say lesbians?" And she looks at him and she goes, "You got a problem with that?" Like,
Yes.
it's just, it's it's all that neck like that connection.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I mean, the delivery too. Honestly, like a line like, oh shit, would have been cut if it wasn't delivered well because it's
Yeah.
not, anyone could have said it at any given time. And I'm sure, like, to get the rating they wanted, they probably couldn't curse too many times, but they left it in because, like, the way he said it was just so natural and, like, the reaction. And it was just like, we expect to see a lot of weird things at a pageant, but not that. Um,
See, and go back to date night.
hmm.
Again,
Game night.
there's one line from Mila Kunis that she says dumbass. The way she says dumbass is my favorite way to say dumbass.
Oh, that I don't
And
know if I'd remember. I
I
didn't think of
saved
that.
it on my Roadcaster because I love the way she says it.
Nice. I will say years ago, probably not when Game Night came out because we were already past this as technology, but like years ago, you used to be able to program your phone with like certain ringtones or text tones that were just audio clips. And I used to do things like that. I would like record a line off TV or like one word that was like delivered funny, and I would use them for certain people. So this was, for example, like 20, maybe 11, maybe 12, I was on the set of Fringe, and my friend Marissa, who I had mentioned earlier, she's a really big Fringe fan, and I hated text messages at the time. I always felt like if you were texting me, it was like emergency, you have to respond right now, and it would give me anxiety. I don't know why. It just, that's how texting used to feel. Obviously, things have changed. We've all gotten used to it as like, this is how we communicate, even the most basic stuff, etc. So we're on the set of Fringe. I don't remember what the question was, but like Joshua Jackson all of a sudden just says, panic, panic, like in this like weird tone. And I was like, oh, I'm using that for Marissa whenever she texts me because that's the feeling I would get. You can't do that anymore. This is all kind of like a moot point at this point. But it is to say that, like, I understand what you're saying when you're saying, like, ooh, Mila Kunis had a really good delivery of this thing and I saved it. Like, I get that. I don't know what you do with it in 2025 anymore, but I think it is just a testament of like, sometimes that's why I think these movies become so influential and why we want to rewatch them all the time is, the plot. Game Night has a pretty layered and interesting plot, but even if it didn't, it has all of these really interesting performances that are layered. And so
Oh yeah, and that
that's
scene where the eggs being tossed around.
mhm,
That
mhm.
scene is so intricate and the way like
Yes. And I think
I
it's a
mean,
oneer. I
I
can't be
think so too.
100% sure because they wipe by so many walls that's when you wipe by a wall in a oneer, it's a really easy place to put in an edit if you have to. So I can't say for sure. I haven't listened to the commentary that they didn't put in any edits, but I think like they covered themselves in case they had to. But it looks like a oneer based on the way it's shot, which also is just another very intricate layer.
I was gonna say they had to practice that because it is so
Oh yeah.
quick.
And like you have to practice the throws because if that's not digital, if you're not enhancing that to make sure that someone's able to catch it properly digitally, which I don't know their budget, I don't know if they did. If you're doing that, you don't have that many takes to like throw it perfectly and make
Right.
sure the person catches it. Because even if you have a lot of those actual eggs as props, if you drop one, it doesn't matter. Like it matters because you have to reset the whole shot.
Yeah.
So if you are resetting from the beginning or the wall wipe, to buy yourself some time, it's still a lot of film you're burning to go back and forth that many times. It's crazy. That was the thing I marveled at. I was like, I can't catch for shit. Like there's one throw where Jason Bateman like catches it almost like a football, and I'm like, I'm very impressed. He's like standing on the balcony and the railing is right there and it just like perfectly lands in his outstretched hands. And I was like, that is, if it's not fake, it's really impressive.
Well, and that was a far like throw too,
Yes.
because from one balcony to the next. And
Yes.
cameo by Danny Houston.
Oh, I
The
don't think
guy
I
like
remembered that.
he was the guy running the Fight Club.
That's funny. I totally forgot who that guy was. I feel bad now, but I 100% blocked him out for some reason.
But that's what I'm saying. There's
Like
so many in
he
this
was playing a
movie.
rich white guy. I block those guys out. I always do. Here we are. Anyway, well, I so appreciate you coming on and chatting about these movies. I'm so excited to talk to movies and to other podcasters who love this medium as much as I do. Do you, before you go, want to pitch anything for your podcast? Do you want to tell people any exciting episodes you have coming up that you want them to tune in for?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me.
Of course.
I'm I'll come back anytime. So I do my episodes in seasons like a TV show. So there's like 23, 24 episodes a season. But really, you can listen to anything. I just finished recently a whole three-part episode over Tony Todd, which I had my first actual like I mean you've been on mine, but I've
Right.
actually like an actual
But like it,
collaboration with
mhm.
another podcast called Live or Die Podcast, and it's and they're exes now, but they're divorced. But it was fun having them on, and then also had Jeffrey Reddick on, who wrote Final Destination, who has worked with Tony Todd multiple times. But today I released an episode for Kill Me Again, which that was a whole ordeal in itself because I friend wanted to watch it, but he meant the new one, and I thought that was a it was a
Oh
remake, and
no.
it's not a remake. The new one's not one. So we watched the old one with Val Kilmer and Michael Madsen, which worked out because they both passed away this year, and it kind of like paid homage to them. It was nice to do that. But I cover so many different things. It doesn't matter what you start with. Like just find something you love and go for it. Like every episode, I do recommend looking at the show notes though, because I do have a drinking game and
I
I
was
do have
just
a
going to
thing
ask you if you
cocktail.
recommend, do you recommend your listeners drink as they listen? Because then as the joke is not fair. The point of your podcast, I think a lot of times is like the more the guest is drinking, the worse they might get at the trivia. Do you want your guests to feel that same vibe, or do you want them to be like, I can do the trivia when they get sloppy, and so I should stay sober?
I am okay with either way. For me, I listen to podcasts in my car, so please don't
Oh,
drink and drive.
yes. And of
But if
course, if
you are
you're
at
under
home,
21, please
yeah,
don't drink at all.
I know, and that happened recently. So I say drinking, like underage drinking. It wasn't. I covered a film. I reached out to people, like I tagged them on Instagram, and one reached out to me. I did not know it was a child.
Mm,
So we had been messaging on Instagram back and forth, and I realized it was a child. And I was like, oh, let's not do this. Let me send you questions. You can answer them, and I post those on my Instagram account. And he's like, when I turn 21, I said, yes, when you turn 21, come back on the show.
right.
Because he's been in a lot of movies recently. But if you are at home and you want to drink along, go for it. If you just want to have that theme cocktail and the drinking game for whatever movie we cover or TV show, then do that. Drink then and then listen to the episode if you want to. Or like listen first and then watch the movie.
Mhm.
See what you point out. See what minor things that you see that I may not have caught.
I like that because I do feel like if you watch the movie after, you have a new appreciation. If you watch it first, I don't want to call it cheating. It's just like homework or it's just like prepping for the test. But I do feel like it's more fun to watch it after because even when I came on and I had just rewatched Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, you still stumped me with questions. I then watched it again and was like, oh yeah, like the you asked me, but what was in the background of a certain shot? And I was like, I wasn't paying attention because I was looking at like the actor or whatever. And so then you have kind of a new appreciation because you're watching it in a different way for different things. And if it's your millionth rewatch, like it was for me, it's okay to not look at the actor all the time because you've seen it 999,999 previous times. All right, we talked about three great movies today. Yes, three. Miss Congeniality, Lee's past pop culture influence, that's available to stream on Peacock. Game Night, his present pop culture influence, that is not available to stream, but it is available to rent on Apple TV. And then Date Night, which I kept bringing up because I kept confusing it with Game Night for some reason, that is streaming on Hulu. So I say this because, as you know, I like to leave you with where to find the titles that we discussed so that you can watch and enjoy them for yourself. As always, I'm Danielle. This has been made possible by Pop Culture, the podcast. Stick around for another episode next week.